From Phoenix, Arizona, home to the brand that's made golf easier for more than 60 years, it's Ping Academy Live 2022. Here's your host, Andrew Rice.
Welcome back, everybody. Ryan, before we discuss Ping's new wedges for this year, let's talk about what goes into designing a wedge. We hear about set wedges and specialty wedges. What's the difference, and what should golfers consider in determining the best choice for them?
So set wedges are typically part of the set design, and so when we've designed irons like G425, we'll design from pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, and lob wedge, and those are designed to have a very cohesive feel all the way into that design. Specialty wedges are standalone, and we really focus on what are the best attributes to design in just a standalone family of wedges. When we look at the specialty wedges, it's where you really broaden out and have versatility in different ways. So we have bunker style clubs, we have really low bounce style that help with hitting a lot of greenside different types of shots. We have our wide sole, very high bounce, and we have our S, which is our moderate style, where we really allow for a lot of different playability characteristics and getting that dialed in. And that's really a great element when you look at the set wedges and then going to specialty wedges, is that if you're looking for that next step, the specialty wedges really start to lead you into a path where you can hit and execute different styles of shots that are a little bit more challenging, which is set wedges.
As engineers, you're faced with designing wedges for some of the best players in the world. How does that process work, and how do you keep them all happy? What do they look for in a wedge?
So working with the best players in the world, there's a lot of different requests, and there's players that want smaller heads, they want larger heads, they want more offset, they want to see capture. It's just a lot of different requirements, and that's where having different specialty wedges and set wedges allows us to really meet the needs of different players.
Ryan, groove technology is one of the first things golfers think about when considering new wedges, and Ping has quite a history when it comes to grooves. Tell us about Ping's extensive and ongoing research into grooves. What have you learned, and how has it helped golfers play better?
Yeah, so our research has gone from understanding grooves to understanding the friction of the face to understanding that whole element of the face design all plays a very interconnected and complex aspect in getting good performance from ball contact to the face. And when we looked at the grooves in particular, there is the sidewall angle, there's the edge radius, there's how you manufacture it. So we do a wheel cut groove right now because it's our best way for manufacturing the tightest and most exact groove profiles and getting the most spin from what we can deliver with just the edge radius. But we really have gone through all sorts of different styles of research. We've done design of experiments to understand how the interconnected relationship of all those different elements. We're studying right now and just looking at the face profile and understanding the texture of the design and how that plays into how a texture plus the groove and edge radius of a groove can actually lead to getting more spin. It's a very complex design element, and we have to understand that whole part to really capture and get better contact with the ball on the face.
Last question before we get into the new wedges for this year. It's a two-parter. Ping's leadership role in custom fitting extends into the wedge category in a lot of ways. Starting with the multiple sole grind and loft combinations. Part 1. Why is that important from a fitting standpoint? And part 2, explain the role wedges play in putting together a properly gapped set of clubs.
So the first part there, when we look at just the grinds, players play in all sorts of different conditions, and you play with tight turf to soft turf, you play in really soft bunkers to really firm bunkers. All these different characteristics lead to having different types of sole grinds. And so when we look at our family of wedges and we have the S, T, E, and W sole grinds, they all have a specific purpose to be able to play in different conditions. That's even pre-taking in player characteristics. So we have players that have a steeper angle of attack, shallower angle of attack. All of that melds together and really determining what is a great fit for different types of players. When we look at the lofts that we offer, that's really about getting into the second part, where the gapping and understanding how does that play in. Players play all different types of irons. They don't all have the same lofts from a pitching wedge and the way that they gap. And players, just shot characteristics lead to hitting different distances and having different gaps between their clubs, whether they're a higher club head speed or a slower club head speed player. Because of that, we really want to have different lofts that you can gap really well from your shortest irons down into your wedges, so that when you want an 85-yard shot, a 60-yard shot, you can pick a particular wedge and have really good control over that distance. and whether they're playing a 3-wedge system or a 4-wedge system, really dial that in to have consistent gapping from their irons into wedges and have the right sole grinds to be able to hit the right types of shots, whether they're hitting full shots all the way down to those greenside and bunker shots.
All right, let's talk about what's new from Ping in wedges. Late last year, you introduced the Glide Forged Pro line, and this year the Glide 4.0 is being introduced. Both fit the definition of a specialty wedge. Start with the Glide Forged Pro. At first glance, it looks smaller and compact. It has a real shot maker's profile, clearly aimed at better players. Why?
Yeah, so with Glide Forge Pro, we focused on that idea of shot maker's wedge, and we really did leverage tour and look at the attributes that we wanted to really key in on for specific players. So it is a smaller profile. It has more offset. It gives it that captured appearance that allows that player to feel like they can really hit down on the ball and flight the trajectory. And because of those elements, it's led to really having that performance aspect of a smaller shot maker's wedge. So it has thinner top rail, the capture appearance, smaller blade length. When we look at how that translates over to the consumer, it's for that same type of player that wants to have the ability to hit high versatility shots and have that feeling of a smaller profile, which actually gives confidence to players that are used to playing that smaller wedge.
We touched on grooves earlier, and you mentioned some of the precision you're able to achieve through the wheel cut milling process. You also mentioned the importance of the finish of the face to achieve the ideal balance of high spin and low launch. You call it a friction face. What can golfers expect performance-wise?
So with our wedges, it's all about flighting lower. So we have that low launch, high spin trajectory. But because of our friction face, it actually allows that to influence in a lot of different conditions and give predictability. So our wedges are different from others in the marketplace because of delivering that lower spin, that better flight, and really gives that consistency and predictability.
It's forged from 8620 carbon steel. Why forging and why that material?
So we selected the material first, 8620 carbon steel, because of its material properties. It's a really good carbon steel that is machinable. We can put that friction face within the design. And forging was kind of the secondary element. Because of how clean and smaller profile of the wedge, it was just a great wedge for forging because of just the general characteristics of the design. But with the 8620, it's a higher strength carbon steel, better durability, better wear characteristics, but we're also able to machine in and have that perfect friction face on every club.
The Glide Forge Pro is a thing of beauty. Now, tell us about the Glide 4.0. It's hard to believe you're already on the 4th generation of the Glide family. It just keeps getting better. One of the biggest differences from the Glide 3.0 is that 4.0 is made of 8620 carbon steel instead of 431 stainless. Why the change?
So from the learnings that we had with Glide Forge Pro and where we're forging 8620, we've taken that same material and brought it into our Glide 4.0. It's a great material, it's castable, it allows us to really produce the overall head shape and technology design. And as I mentioned, it has really good wear characteristics, it's a higher strength carbon steel, has great durability, but being a carbon steel, it really lends itself to the feel element as well within this design.
Tell us about the feel. You made some nice improvements there. How did you do it?
So we marry the material with another one of our technologies, which is the activated elastomer. And so we have an insert that goes into the back of every single club. It's a technology we've utilized on our I210 iron as well that just gives that iron such a superb feel. We've brought that in as well within Glide 4.0. The activated elastomer is larger. It covers more of the contact surface on the iron itself. It's 36% more coverage in the hitting area. And because of that and aligning it with the 8620 material, it really just gives that smush, compact feel that you get with a well-struck wedge.
A couple of years ago, Ping's researchers did an interesting and very revealing study on the effect of the wedge's hydro-pearl chrome finish on shots hit from wet conditions. Tell us about what you learned and the benefit it brings to golfers.
So when we study the area of wedges and we've looked at different conditions, you typically have the most friction and you have the best trajectory coming out of perfectly dry conditions where there's just a little bit of grass in play. That's where you get that low launch, high spin trajectory. And as you move into different conditions, such as hitting out of rough condition, wet condition, bunker condition, that starts to trail off and you have high launch and lower spin. Hydropool, and the way that we've utilized it as our finish, allows us to preserve that performance deeper into more of those adverse conditions. And so the nature of the finish, it helps repel both water as well as push away debris. And because of that, you get more contact similar to being in good conditions. And so we actually have situations where under certain conditions, that wet condition actually produces more spin than a dry condition. And that's unlike anything else that's on the market.
Very interesting. The Glide 4.0 wedges have the same groove dimensions as the Glide Forged Pro, including the Emery Blast. A case of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Are there some subtle differences between the two?
Other than that, the face profile is larger. We've applied the same face texture, Emery Blast, and scoreline geometry to both clubs. But it's really because, as you mentioned, it is what's working really well for us. And it's right on the precipice as far as our research and knowledge has taken us on having the best performance from our face friction.
Give us an overview of the grind and loft options. In all, there are 17 choices, ensuring a combination to fit any golfer's game. Why is that so important?
So we do 17 in both right hand and left hand, and that's really unique in the marketplace, is having that broad offering for all golfers. And the loft range and grind options is really allowing for having conditions that you can play different types of wedges. And so we go from 46 degrees all the way up to 60 degrees. We have our S grind, which is our moderate bounce. It's really that first place to start. When you look at our wedges, is picking up that is for kind of that moderate delivery and gives a really good turf interaction. We have our T grind, which is our thin sole, and we offer that in our highest lofted range, and it's for more of that versatility and greenside and shot making style. The E grind is completely based on our I2 profile, and we've made some great improvements to that design to really hone in on that shape for that person that knows that classic I2. It really is all about that bunker performance. It's a great club out of the bunker. It plays with the most insurance on getting the ball up and out of the bunker and onto the green, and then actually plays with a little bit less bounce if you hit it around the green, that you can have more of that low bounce profile outside of a bunker. And then lastly, our W grind, which is our high bounce profile, and is really for that player that is taking that step from playing set wedges into specialty wedges. It has that wider sole, more bounce, and is really that most forgiving. Great for that player that wants to hit a lot of shots with the lead edge square and is just starting to learn how to hit more of those specialty type shots.
That really is quite an offering, Ryan. I can't wait to show these to my students. They can always use a little help with their short games, that's for sure.